If you've been scrolling through endless video conference hardware options and still feel like you're chasing a moving target, you're not alone. I spent a few days setting up the Poly Studio X50 in a mid-size boardroom and testing it with Teams, Zoom, and a couple of guest speaker calls, just to see if it actually lives up to the hype. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the biggest hesitation most buyers have is the fear of buying a one-size-fits-all box that looks good on paper but ends up being a compromise in daily use. In the real world, a conference system has to survive a dozen different scenarios: a quick stand-up with 3 people, a full-scale client demo with external presenters, a recorded webinar, and everything in between. The Studio X50 tries to be the Swiss Army knife for those mid-size rooms, and that ambition shows up in how it actually feels when you walk into the room and flip the power switch. The setup story is where the promise of simple setup starts to make sense. Out of the box you have the audio-video bar, the TC8 touch controller, a power cable, and a single HDMI cable that doubles as the video input. Hook the HDMI to your laptop or to a wall-mounted source, plug the power, and the system runs a quick auto-calibration. Within a couple of minutes the camera knows its field of view, the microphones level themselves, and the touchscreen is already populated with the most common meeting platforms. I didn't have to dive into a 30-page manual. The on-screen wizard guided me through Teams, Zoom, and Google Meet registration steps. That hands-off feel is a genuine time-saver for IT teams that usually have to script a custom deployment for each room. Now, let's talk about what happens when a meeting actually starts. The 4K camera tracks speakers automatically, which is a nice touch when you have a rotating presenter lineup. In a test call with 3 participants in the room, the camera stayed focused on whoever was talking, and the far right side of the room didn't feel like a blind spot. The built-in speaker array filled the space with clear, balanced audio that held up even when 2 people were speaking at once. I ran a quick listen back on a Zoom recording and there was no noticeable echo or background bleed, something that can be a pain point with cheaper speaker mic combos. The real value for money shows up when you compare the Studio X50 to building a similar solution from separate components. If you buy a dedicated 4K PTZ camera, a conference-grade speakerphone, and a separate controller, you're looking at roughly the same price point, but you also have to manage 3 pieces of firmware, 3 power cords, and 3 sets of cables. The all-in-one nature of the X50 cuts down on clutter, reduces cable management headaches, and gives you a single warranty to worry about. For a mid-size room that seats 8 to 12 people, that consolidation can be worth the premium. But the price tag is where the rubber meets the road for many buyers. The Studio X50 sits in the upper mid-range for robust systems, and the 3.5-star rating from 12 Amazon reviewers hints that it's not a universal crowd-pleaser. One practical downside I noticed is the lack of a dedicated external mic array option. The built-in microphones work well for a typical boardroom, but if you regularly have participants on the far ends of a larger space, you'll start to feel the limits. The system does let you add external mics, but you quickly lose the single-box simplicity that made the initial setup attractive. Another trade-off is the flexibility of the touch controller. The TC8 is intuitive for most meetings. Tap a button, join a Zoom call, adjust volume, or switch to Teams. However, if your organization relies on a custom meeting room scheduler or wants deep integration with a proprietary platform, you'll find the controller's menu depth a bit shallow. There's no open API for custom buttons, so power users might feel constrained compared to a more modular solution where you can map any function to a hardware shortcut. Who should buy the Poly Studio X50? If you run a medium-sized company with a handful of dedicated meeting rooms, or you're an education department looking to equip a lab that hosts both in-person and virtual classes, the X50 gives you a reliable, turnkey experience. It's also a solid pick for a consulting firm that frequently hosts client demos. The production quality video and clear audio let you present polished content without hiring a tech crew. Basically, any scenario where you want consistent performance across Teams, Zoom, and similar platforms, and you're willing to invest a bit more for that consistency, fits the bill. Who should skip it? Small huddle rooms that only host 2 or 3 people will likely find the X50 overkill, both in terms of cost and the size of the bar. Startups on a shoestring.